This is Joseph Ralston with FTH 212, week 2 module. Do some talking about some of the components and building the dagger. So let's get into it. So we have here is the PSA dagger in the exploded configuration. I do have to note some of the smaller screws and roll pins in this area right here, just so I don't lose them. There's no live ammo, and obviously the firearm is empty and clear. So the first part that I'm going to go over is the extractor plunger right here. So this helps with the extraction of the round. It interacts with the extractor, the spring, and the back portion, which rubs against the back plate. When it's in its sub-assembly, it actually holds the extractor in place as such, and allows rotation of the extractor to extract the casing. In its complete assembly, if this spring is weak, it won't, it'll interrupt the feeding and chambering of the firearm, and possibly the extraction of the casing itself. Next, the fire pin safety. This is a safety device, and it uses a spring and sits like so in there, and sits inside the frame in there, right in that area, and that prevents that works in conjunction with the firing pin and the trigger bar. So when the trigger is depressed, the trigger bar is gonna go back and push this up, allowing this to move out of the way of the firing pin and move that forward. If this fails, it could affect cause a failure to fire, and over time this could get worn out on this surface from the trigger bar, and this surface from riding up and down this, and as well as the spring itself that goes into it could become weak and not have enough tension on it. That would affect the firing process as well. Next is the guide rod. This part doesn't really see much failure as far as the guide rod. It could get bent and stuff, but it does work in conjunction with the spring and the screw that holds the spring in on the dagger. And if this is weak, the slide won't slide back, and it could intermittently mess with the feeding, chambering, and locking of the firearm. So there's that. Next was a slide lock spring that sits down in here in this area, and that works with the slide lock itself. With this, if it fails, could fail, would not help with the locking of the slide to hold it in. Other than that, it doesn't really play a whole role in the cycle of operations. Next is the extractor, the ejector. I'm sorry about that. But that ejects the casing out. That plays a role with the extractor over there, and it sits inside the housing over here in that little groove right there as a full assembly. And if this gets worn out or anything, there would be a failure to eject. Next is the connector or disconnect, depending on where you find or where you get your training from. This interacts with the trigger bar by having this ledge right here move down, and it releases the sear on from here. So when it gets pushed down, it'll pop off like that. This has a indirect effect on the firing of the firearm, and if that gets worn down or anything, there could be a failure to fire with that. And I believe that's all of it. Next, I will show some dimensions right here of the 6 figures. So that should complete that portion. And out of the 6, this one, I don't believe it should take very long, maybe about 10 minutes to replace that. That's as long as the gunsmith should take. I haven't seen it wear out any of my Glocks that I have. But this would be more likely the culprit, which should take about 10 minutes as well, or less. As far as professional training or anything that a gunsmith could do, I would say for avoiding damage or serious damage, probably just going with an armored class to begin with for any of the platforms they're working on. That would be the basis, I would say. And then, yeah. Now that the build is complete, we're going to go over the cycle of operations real quick. Function test with dummy rounds. There is no live ammo. The firearm is unloaded and clear visually and physically. So we're going to start with feeding, and then chambering and locking, firing. Then we're going to get the ejection, unlocking, and chambering and locking again in the next round. Again, then firing, and then we're going to get the same thing again. And again. And one more time, and those slides should block back. There we go. Now we empty the magazine. And that's it.